Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Virabhadra. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Virabhadra. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Astotra Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Astotra Tata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavan Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. And Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Well, I don't know if we have a verse today. And I wasn't here yesterday, so 29 is the verse? Okay. Thank you. So this is a special day. This is the appearance day of Shri Virabhadra Prabhu, who is an incarnation of Mahavishnu, or Chiradaksha Vishnu. And we'll read a little something about him. I don't think he's in the Samadhi's book, at least I didn't find his name there, so I found another. Okay, so this is from Adi Lila, chapter 11, text 8. This chapter is entitled The Expansions of Lord Nityananda. After Nityananda Prabhu, this is 11.8 as I mentioned. After Nityananda Prabhu, the greatest branch is Virabhadra Gosai, who also has innumerable branches and sub-branches. It is not possible to describe them all. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya. Virabhadra Gosai was the direct son of Srila Nityananda Prabhu and a disciple of Janava Devi. Doesn't say is the son of Janava Devi too? Vasudha. Okay. His real mother was Vasudha. Sorry, could have kept reading. In the Gaur Ganodesh Deepika 67, he is mentioned as an incarnation of Chirodakshaya Vishnu. Therefore, Virabhadra Gosai is non-different from Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the village of the name Jamatapur, in the district of Hugli, Virabhadra Gosai had a disciple named Yadunaracharya, who had two daughters, a real daughter named Srimati and a foster daughter named Narayani. Both these daughters married and they are mentioned in the Bhakti Ratnakara in the 13th wave. Virabhadra Gosai had 3 disciples who are celebrated as his sons, Gopijana Vallabha, Ramakrishna, and Ramachandra. The youngest, Ramachandra, belonged to the Shandilia dynasty and had the surname Vatavyala. He established his family at Kadadaha, and its members are known as the Goswamis of Kadadaha. The elder disciple, Gopijana Vallabha, was a resident of a village known as Lata, near the Manakar railway station in the district of Burdwan. The second, Ramakrishna, lived near Maladaha, in a village named Gayeshapur. Close quote, and Prabhupada continues. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur notes that since these 3 disciples belonged to different gotras or dynasties, and also had different surnames, and lived in different places, it's not possible to accept them as real sons of Virabhadra Gosai. Ramchandra had 4 sons, of whom the eldest was Radha Madhava, whose 3rd son was named Yadavendra. Yadavendra's son was Nandakishore, his son was Nidhi Krishna, and his son was Chaitanya Chanda. His son was Krishna Mohan, his son was Jagamohan, his son was Vrajanath, and his son was Sham Lal Goswami. This is the genealogical table given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for the descendants of Virabhadra Gosai. All right, I'm going to read a little bit more here. It says a few more things, or maybe at least one verse. Although Virabhadra Gosai was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he presented himself as a great devotee, and although the Supreme Godhead is transcendental to all Vedic injunctions, he strictly followed the Vedic rituals. He is the main pillar in the hall of devotional service erected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew within himself that he acted as the Supreme Lord Vishnu, but externally he was prideless. It is by the glorious mercy of Sri Virabhadra Gosai that people all over the world now have the chance to chant the names Chaitanya and Nityananda. I therefore take shelter of the lotus feet of Virabhadra Gosai, so that by his mercy my great desire to write Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita will properly be guided. And that's all I have of Virabhadra Gosai. Hare Krishna. All right, we'll continue with Bhagavatam. And we are on text 29, written hastily, but very beautifully. I'm not going to guess who wrote it. Okay. Yeah. Just let me get settled here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of November 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 27, attack by Chandavega on the city of King Puranjan, the character of Kalakanya, text number 29. Tvamavyakta bhunksva lokam karvamanirmitam yahi me pratanayukta pradanasham pranishyasi tvamavyakta bhunksva lokam karvamanirmitam yahi me pratanayukta pradanasham pranishyasi tvamavyakta bhunksva lokam karma vinirmitam yahi me pratanayukta pradanasham pranishyasi tvamavyakta bhunksva lokam karma vinirmitam yahi me pratanayukta shampanishasi tvamavyakta bhunksva lokam karma vinirmitam yahi me pratanayukta pradanasham panishasi Tvamavyaktakati bhunksva lokam karma vinirmitam yahime pratana yukta padanasham tvam you avyaktakatihi, whose movement is imperceptible. Bhunksva, enjoy. Lokam, this world. Karma vinirmitam, manufactured by fruit of activities. Ya, one who. He, certainly. May, my. Pratana, soldiers. Yukta, helped by. Pradanasham, annihilation of the living entities. Paneshasi, you shall carry out without any hindrance. Translation. This world is a product of fruit of activities. Therefore you may imperceptibly attack people in general. Helped by my soldiers, you can kill them without opposition. Purport. The word karma vinirmitam means manufactured by fruit of activities. This entire material world, especially in these days, is the result of fruit of activities. Everyone is fully engaged in decorating the world with highways, motor cars, electricity, skyscrapers, industries, businesses, etc. All this appears very nice for those who are simply engaged in sense gratification and who are ignorant of spiritual identity, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Rishabhdev in the 5th canto. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pritaya apinoti nasarumanye yata atmanoyam asannapi klesha da'asa deha. Those without knowledge of the spirit soul are mad after materialistic activities, and they perform all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. According to Rishabhdev, such activities are inauspicious because they force one to accept an abominable body in the next life. Everyone can experience that although we try to keep the body in a comfortable position, it is always giving pain and is subjected to the threefold miseries. Otherwise, why are there so many hospitals, welfare boards, and insurance establishments? Actually, in this world, there is no happiness. There is no happiness. People are simply engaged trying to counteract unhappiness. Foolish people accept unhappiness as happiness. Therefore, the king of the Yavanas decided to attack such foolish people imperceptibly by old age, disease, and ultimately death. Of course, after death, there must be birth. Therefore, Yavana Raj thought it wise to kill all the karmis through the agency of Kalakanya, and thus try to make them aware that materialistic advancement is not actually advancement. Every living entity is a spiritual being, and consequently, without spiritual advancement, the human form of life is ruined. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So here we have a kind of a close association between Yavana Raj and this Jara, who is the daughter of time, Kalakanya, which is old age and validity that comes with it, and then Prajvara, which is the fever just before death. That's 170 degrees. In other words, that's a fatal disease. And altogether, they have a mission. Now, it's interesting that Prabhupada presents this Yavana Raj as kind of a devotee. He's doing the work of Krishna and his representatives by killing everybody, in other words, but not suddenly, not wiping them out. But with the advent of old age and disease and death, everybody eventually is swept off the scene and gone into another lifetime. So, now that Krishna uses that in his preaching. We find in the Bhagavad Gita the famous line, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. Now it's important to know the context whenever we quote these things. And the context is a whole list of things of knowledge that we need in order to progress spiritually, in order to be real human beings. Starting with pridelessness, humility, amanatvam, and then adambitvam, which is the lack of hypocrisy, basically, and pride, false pride. So it goes on like that, associating a spiritual master, seeing the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease, being detached from material things. There's like 20 elements I think about. So unless we have that knowledge, unless we're given that knowledge, and it's impressed upon us as essential, we're going to simply be living life in a complete cloud of ignorance, just as we have for thousands and thousands of births before. And we see people, they're struggling so hard to eke out, some place of security and happiness and prosperity in this world, and they're constantly being frustrated. Material life is a life of frustration, followed by some kind of hope and hard struggle and ultimate defeat every time for every person. Because no matter what you're able to do, if you're able to succeed somehow because of your some pious activity in your background, and you think it's all because of my activities and my intelligence and my good luck, eventually, materially, your luck runs out, right? Due to the force of time, the force of disease, old age, everything is taken. Mrityu sarvaharas. So what's amazing really is, of course, the most amazing thing, as Yudhishthira told his father, who was asking the questions, he didn't know that, he's Yamaraj. What's the most amazing thing? There's a whole series of questions when he was out in the forest, and there's looking for water, and he found it. The story. And the most amazing thing is ahani bhutani gachanti amaliyam sheshakstavana michanti kamaschayam atakparam. What could be more amazing than this? Day by day, millions of human beings, of course all kinds of beings, but human beings have intelligence, are dragged off to the abode of Yamaraj. And they die, and because they led sinful lives, they're judged and so forth. But those who are left live according to the assumption, the outlook of life, that they won't be taken off. In other words, if you see that the whole thing is senseless and fruitless, what's the point of struggling so hard to build up some money and security in this world where it's a fool's errand? And the only answer, there's no real good answer, is that you don't realize that you're going to get born again. In other words, the basic principle that this one life, and probably a flash life, you can sometimes call it, is, I like to call it a small chapter in a very large book. We don't know about the previous chapters that we've lived in this world. All kinds of species and situations up and down, That's what death is. I was just reading the third canto. This is fine. Life, completely forgetting your previous life and starting a new life in the womb and waking up, that's known as death, So forgetfulness is there, and you start out fresh, you don't know anything, And then, what do you know of your future life? It's not evident, it can never be understood just by scientific knowledge or investigation, no matter how powerful they make the microscopes and the telescopes and the algorithms. Now they have quantum computing. Does anyone know anything about that? I was just reading about it. You guys know about it. It's so much more powerful and fast and so many things. But they'll never be able to understand the A of the ABCs of spiritual life. Because it's just beyond the ken. That's what transcendental means. Transcendental means beyond the reach of material mind and senses. Krishna is known as Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja. He defeats, Adha, pushes it down, all knowledge born, ja, of the akshas, the eyes and the other senses. Adhokshaja. So, if we want to know anything, we have to give up. That's why it's amanitvam. The first thing is pridelessness, realizing, I can't figure it out. I don't know anything. This is the mood of Arjuna when he finally surrendered. 2nd chapter, 7th verse, very important. Karpanya dosho pahadat svabhava. I'm confused. Please tell me for certain what's best for me, how I can achieve Shreya. I don't know what Dharma is. I don't know the right thing to do. Sanatana Goswami is another great example. very learned. He knew 3 languages. He was the right hand of the king, minister, very, very intelligent and learned. But he presented himself as, what do I know really? Ke ami. Who am I? Why am I suffering these threefold miseries? If I don't know that, what's the use of all my erudition? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it's just piling up the ignorance more and more. It's one thing if you're ignorant and you know you're ignorant and you try to search out some knowledge, even materially, what to speak of spiritually. It's a whole other thing if you have accumulated material knowledge and you think I'm very smart. It's the difference between an agnostic and an atheist. It's important to distinguish those. Because an agnostic basically means, I don't know if there's God. Okay. Then you may be open to finding someone or some source that can really explain to you, If you're an atheist, it means I know there's no God. And I'm going to write books on it and go on TV and fight all this darkness of religion, That's the atheist. They're out and out, they're demons. The agnostics are oftentimes innocent. I was agnostic. I admitted it. You have to admit it. not just that you're agnostic, but that you don't know if there's a God. I can't see him, and maybe not, but that's fine. Then you can find out. So, coming to the point of agnosticism is an advantage, provided that one has the right association. And this is what Prabhupada has given us. It's so, fixed on presenting the Shastra, being an agent for giving this knowledge in a language that people could understand. It was in India, in the Puranas, of course. In Kali Yuga, there's a lot of confusion even by those who know how to read all these things. Just knowing that there's the Vedas there is ultimately not going to help you. You have to be able to find out what's the essence of the Vedas and understand Vedaischa sarva hameva Vedya, says I'm the goal of the Vedas, and hook up with the real parampara. But aside from that, where was it really known outside of India? There's a big language barrier. The English would dabble a little bit, but they would all get it wrong. I got to admit, one of the main dictionaries we use is called Monier Williams. It was an Englishman who was into Sanskrit and everything, and he made it. So we used his dictionary. But even though he knew all those words, he wasn't a devotee. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes they became terrible, trying to suppress the Vedic knowledge because they thought it was all. They were, thinking, Christianity, you have to be given Christianity. Otherwise they're just heathens. So there's a big effort in India to spread Christianity. But to be that as it may, this knowledge, and here what we're witnessing here in this allegory is really how the material world works. And as Prabhupada explains nicely in this purport, this whole world is manufactured by fruit of activities. Why is there a material world? Because a certain percentage of the living entities are going to rebel against Krishna and turn toward this material world and try to exploit it. So this material world is here as a reformatory. There's punishment, birth, old age, disease, and death, threefold miseries. You can see that. But there's also means and sources of real knowledge. Krishna sometimes comes himself, or as Lord Chaitanya explains in his teaching to Sanatan, he comes as the guru. Really read the very important chapter of the Adi Leela. First chapter describes the gurus. The Shiksha Guru, the Diksha Guru, Vartmapadashika Guru, different kind of who are helping us to turn our attention in the right way and give us knowledge by which we can understand what's going on. So that this world is sustained by this fruit of desire to somehow enjoy in this world, somehow make it our home, and which is a great illusion. But we don't know if you're in the illusion. Just like if you're in a dream, you don't know it's a dream. You take it very seriously. Someone, I just heard a lecture probably say, "Oh, the tiger is eating me," and you wake up screaming, or it could be a very pleasant dream, whatever it is. But whatever it is, you take it for real, And then you wake up, and if it's a nightmare, you say, oh, thank God it was just a nightmare. If it was a nice dream, oh, maybe I can go back to sleep and pick that one up. But either way, it's not. It's not real. But there's a wonderful lecture I remember listening to many times, where there's a daydream and the night dream. We take the daydream to be real, and the night dream to be, oh, it's just a dream. But even the daydream is also a dream. Yeah, it's much shorter. It's also a dream. Ultimately, it's not what you think it is. It's not that nothing is going on. The material energy is real. We're real. But our idea that our home is here and our aspiration is here, that this is me, that this form that I'm seeing in the mirror, and that gradually somehow or other I'm getting old. Maybe I can take that pill, like that pill. And get insurance. Prabhupada talks about insurance. What is insurance? Insurance is built on one of these characters here, right? Was known as fear personified, right? It's all fear. Life insurance. What'll happen to my kids? Okay, I'll buy $100,000 worth of life insurance, pay every month. Now I can give up that anxiety. What about my house? Maybe it could burn down. Okay, fire insurance. Let me pay the fire insurance. Oh, that's a relief. My car. I can't even have a car if I don't have insurance. It's a law. I pay every year. Every month. I went to Canada. I used to visit before we had COVID once a year for the Rath Yatra. And I would stay with some friends up there. And I learned, oh my God, the insurance, $200, $300 a month in many places. Is that right? You've heard? Yeah, for just to drive in a car. It's like a big tax. But it's like, good grief. I'm paying less than $300 a year because I pay by the mile, and I hardly drive it anymore. It's for old people. But what is the point? Well, if I get in an accident, I'll have to, if I hurt somebody, that'll be covered. So it's if horrible things happen. And so all the insurance is based on a health insurance. But ultimately, the worst happens. Everything is taken away. Your body is taken away. There's no insurance for that. You can't buy insurance, death insurance. So the material life is built on this, hopes and desires and some little fulfillment, with the sense gratification that covers your knowledge and gives you more hope, and then that's dash and anxiety. You have some trauma, you can't get rid of it. It's causing you. This is material life. It doesn't matter what era it's in. That's the way it is. So those who are intelligent and fortunate will ask, is this all there is? Is there a meaning to all this? Where did I come from? How did this whole world come about? Even the scientists oftentimes, when they investigate the universe, the way the universe works and the world works and just the human body, so this is amazing. If they're intelligent, let's see, there must be some intelligence behind it. And the next step is there's a person, with that intelligence. But they suppress this in the schools. No, it's all coming about by chance, Many, many millions and trillions of years, the molecules came together and they formed the first very rudimentary living beings, and then for many, many more millions of years, like that. Sadhaputta, when I used to work with the BI, I was working with the BI as Bhaktivedanta Institute. So the first thing he wrote was this monograph. Monograph is like a thing you write, it's a scientific thing or mathematical. So it was entitled, he doesn't mince any words, Proof by Information Theory that Life Cannot Arise from Matter. It was actually revolutionary. And this was his specialty in college, is information theory, which is, I don't know anything about it, but you can just, basically you can understand, there's too much information in this universe. He did a whole calculation. I started reading it, but there's all these equations, you can't. So, but I understood the basic argument. It's the old proof from design that there's a God, And he said, no, there's way too much information, and give so many examples of how things are working so perfectly, I mean, when I was a kid, and periodically you have these solar eclipses, full solar eclipse, right? So in those days, you have to have a smoke glass or something, so be careful, you'll ruin your eyes, okay, I'm watching. And sure enough, just when they said it would, whoa, it looked like the sun's getting eaten up, it's getting blacker, and then it was covered completely, perfectly. You know how it is. And there's an aura around it, there's a big corona, So even at that point, it didn't really lead anywhere, but it's example. My God, it just fits perfectly? Suppose it was a little, farther away, then it would be it wouldn't fully cover. Or if it was the moon was closer, the way they explain it, it would cover completely. You wouldn't see that corona. But it's just arranged, so it just goes. So, but if you get into the material world, you see it's all like that. Any little flower, a piece of grass, what to speak of the big things of the planets and the sun moving around. It's all organized. There's information everywhere. Where isn't there information? Everything is. So, and then when you learn about Krishna, yes, Krishna is all pervading. We're reading about Virabhadra, right? He's the super soul. The super soul, that means omnipresent in every atom, between every atom and every molecule. It's the super soul, the supreme intelligence, right? Sustaining everything. And we're also getting our intelligence from the super soul, from Krishna. Everything's coming from Krishna. In other words, the background of everything is the supreme person who's omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Now that's something worth investigating. And when you meet, this is what Prabhupada brought, revolutionary. Don't underestimate, but it always amazes me how he came just at that time, Krishna sent him just at that time, when a lot of people's brains were getting shook up. Their sense of reality was getting shook up by all of this LSD and stuff now, At that time it was very, very prominent. That was one of the main drugs people would take. And so, having get shook up and have an intimation of immortality and information of divinity, that God, and they didn't know, and many people were damaged by it. I'm not recommending it or anything. But there were a certain number of them who had a background of college. Notice how the first few devotees were very educated. Hayagriva, Kirtananda, they were both postgraduate studies. Umapati, all of them, Mukunda, Michael Green, So it answered questions. And Prabhupada himself, he gave so much of his time. You could go up in the background. Can you imagine that? You want to see the Swami? Oh, let me see if I can go talk to him. You walk in off the street and go up there and speak for an hour to Prabhupada and get his association. And what was he doing there? He was giving his association and trying to plant those seeds in the heart. And he found a few fertile hearts, where we would take up the process. And they would continue to hear him, and they would move to service, and service and surrender and so forth. And they became advanced enough to sustain the center when he went off to the West Coast, and the whole thing grew from that. But the idea is that we're also meant to be, absorbed in this Bhagavatam, and reconvinced every day. Our faith needs to be renewed and watered by the whole process that we undergo. This is why the morning program is so important. The chanting, the songs to the spiritual master, we should know what every word means and each verse means. That's so important. And then your faith gets renewed because you're having an experience there. They say, I've been reading, there's so much depression and anxiety around because of this COVID thing now, Plus, we had Trump on top of it. But anyway, that caused a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. So, but they say, and one of the reasons was because of the isolation. The lockdown. People, can't get together with others, But those who, they've done studies even in normal times, that those who pray regularly, they're talking mostly Catholics and Christians, get together and attend church and sing and glorify God, even in their own way. They don't know completely, but they're looking. They are much better off. Materially, their demeanor, they're less prone to depression and all these different things. What to speak of? Full morning program every day, and really you can feel that because of what you understand. There's a few of us here are getting to our sell-by date. I don't know what to say. In other words, we're kind of expiring. In other words, we're older, you know. But you don't, you know, what's being described here is not exactly happening. Some invalidity is coming, you know. I know that Raj has his days when he can dance like a madman, and then he has to, my knees, you know, whatever. I also had a sharp pain in my knee the other day, you know, oh my God. You know. So that's the way it is, you know, you know. But you realize, oh, you know, just let me deepen my Krishna consciousness, chanting, hearing, associated with devotees. And you forget about that, you know. I mean, you know, if you get absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it's a transcendental platform, and it's so valuable. Just that understanding of being able to, you know, go through life and not come to this point where everything that you value, everything that you think is important as a source of happiness and pleasure, is being taken away from you, you know. For middle-aged people, their parents are dying, you know. A friend of mine just had a daughter die, you know, and Shamali left us, you know, that was a big traumatic thing. But it wasn't the same. The whole passage and the work up to it, you know, I mean, I'll never forget this picture that was posted on the website. It's really worth, you know, checking out the website that Bhishma Dev put together about it. There was our you know, very well-known friend, Yumanupati, her father, and she was lying on the bed and discolored, you know, from probably a liver thing or something, but she was smiling, this broad smile, beautiful smile, and her father was leaning down and kissed her cheek, you know. And that's not the way people go in the hospital. I used to work in a hospital for over a year, and in inhalation therapy. And for most people, the approach of death is the most terrifying thing in their life. What is their solution in the hospitals? Drugs, TV, and watch the idiot box to try to forget the horror, which is that, you know, they don't know what's happening, they don't know where they're going, they're in pain, you know, it's horrible. But here was this you know, Vaishnavi, you know, who'd done so much wonderful service and grew up in Vaishnava family. And she had been hearing, you know, her spiritual master was reading to her for hours, you know. I even called up, I read a few things. And, you know, so many others. She had a wide circle of Vaishnava friends, you know. And she was facing this with joy, you know. I mean, that's worth billions of dollars, more, you know. So that's what we're training for, you know, for seeing this body for what it is, which is ultimately we should see it as a great means to serve Krishna while we're able to, you know, and find out what Krishna wants the most, which is for us to be Krishna conscious and really awaken our original love, and to give it to as many people as possible. That's what pleases him the most, you know. And if we just, you know, hook up to that and live our lives in that way, and be strict and give up those things we know we have to give up, and take on those austerities we know we have to do, then we can read this allegory and realize how, yes, we don't have to, you know, deal with all this stuff that's being described here, which is really what happens to everybody who's a materialist. Is that the body breaks down, the city of the body, the 9 gates aren't working so well, you know. Oh my God, you know, it's the most frightening thing, unless you're holding on tightly to the lotus feet of Krishna. I'm going to read this translation again. This world is a product of fruit of activities. Therefore, you may imperceptibly attack people in general. Helped by my soldiers, you can kill them without opposition. Hare Krishna. We're getting to the end of this chapter, I think. One more verse. Any questions, comments? Okay. Okay, sure.
Thank you very much for a nice class.
Oh, Prabhu.
In the very beginning you said Srila Prabhupada presents Yavana Raj as apparently a devotee. And my immediate response was, yeah, he does. But I wanted to check myself again because of the thought I'll share in just a second. But in the purport of the 27th chapter, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is the Supreme Lord and everyone's his servant. Yamaraj, the king of the Yavanas, was also a servant of Krishna. Consequently, he wanted to execute the purpose of Krishna through the agency of Kalyakanya. the thought that I had before I verified it was that, oh, wait a second, like evidently most of the Brahmas are non-devotee Brahmas, because that's the first post you take when you leave the spiritual world. You're given a shot to turn right back around, U-turn, and you know, be done with this nightmare. But they, irregardless of being a non-devotee, they execute the purpose of the Lord. So I just thought it was a very interesting thought, because sometimes we don't give enough credit to others when they are instruments in the hands of the Lord, even though they're not Vaishnavas or Gaudiya Vaishnavas, or in my branch of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, you know, whatever it may be. Yeah. The Lord's will is done, and it's amazing how He accomplishes it sometimes.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, after all, Durga herself is a great devotee, but she's the one who's enforcing all of this. Birth, death, old age, and disease. She's got her tridents. The threefold miseries, right? I can't resist my analogy, which, you know, what impels us to take up Krishna consciousness? Well, you know, contact with the devotee. It has to be, you know, that seed has to be planted. But to stay on the path and be serious, you know. So we hear again and again, just like this here, and Bhagavad Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi, you know, and Prabhupada's lectures all the time. Hey, you know, everyone's going to die, you know, birth, death, old age, and disease, but there's a way of breaking out of that. And that's not just one time. That's like, you know, for many we've suffered. So here's the way to break out of it. You know, chant Hare Krishna, reestablish, you know, the whole thing, you know. So this is an impetus for liberation, right? We know that in the ultimately devotees in the Gaudiya Vaishnava, you know, we're not after liberation, right? In fact, that's even mentioned in the beginning of Sridhar Swami's commentary to the second verse as one of the Kaitava dharmas. The idea that you're just looking for liberation, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? Even moksha. Otherwise, why would we hear anyabhilashita shunyam? That's the desire. Lord Chaitanya says, janmani janmani shvare. I don't want liberation, you know, and we sing it every morning here, right? I want to just to, you know, be able to, you know, see your beautiful childic form forever. You know, what use is any other benediction? So what gives here? On one hand, we're encouraged, hey, get serious about getting out of birth and death. That's liberation, you know. And on the other hand, we say, you know, that's ultimately a material. Well, that keeps us, you know, neophytes, serious. As soon as you start rolling your eyes, you know, and Maya is attracting you, maybe I can slow down this process. Do we really need to do that austerity? You know, then you realize, wait a minute, you're ensuring yourself another. Cutting corners. In other words, to keep us going, we got visualize. There's Maya Devi. You know, with the threefold miseries, and there's the four birth, death, old age, and disease. That should keep us. But in the front, and this is what the impersonalists don't have, and those who just want liberation, is Krishna inviting us to join him in his dance of love, as Prabhupada said in the Isha Upanishad. We're all meant to, you know, join the rasa dance. So we have the attraction of Krishna, and we have the serious repulsion, you know, against we should be. So both of those together can help us to become strict till we get to the point of spontaneous devotion. Then we don't have to worry about, you know. Then we can say like Bilvamangal Thakur, you know, Bhakti Strahista Datada Bhagavan Nidhi. My dear Lord, if someone is fixed in devotion to you, then he'll enjoy the fruit, not liberation, but a vision of your beautiful adolescent form. And as far as mukti is concerned, liberation, she's waiting by the door with the Anjali Mudra. How can I serve you? You know, and dharma, artha, kama, whatever I need of them, they're also greater to serve me. So a devotee, if we just focus on that, you know, that's why Krishna says, Sarva dharma parityaja mame kangsharanam vraja. Just give up all other dharmas, you know, whatever you think, and surrender unto me only. If you do that, everything is perfect. But if you're not ready to do that, okay, we got some preliminary things for you to do, you know, leading up to that. But that's, you know, that's the wonderment of this process, is that, and anybody can do it. There's no prerequisite. You don't have to be Brahmin born or this and like that, you know, no Sanskrit. Although I keep nudging people to pronounce properly, you know. But it's that's Lord Chaitanya's movement, Namo Mahabharanya. Most munificent, giving prema freely, and Lord Nityananda, he's Lord Chaitanya's mercy extension, giving, really helping us. So. Okay, well, in the all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Hari Hari Bol.